Another week, another reconvening of the Talkin' Buds. We're halfway through the 2022 season. 2021-2022 season. Come out the other end of the All-Star break. I was thinking, I don't want to do, a gimmicky... no disrespect to any of the other podcasts out there, but, I don't want to do, a gimmicky, report card thing. That's not...
Letter grades.
I don't want to, get in line with the 50 other shows that decide to do that. So we're just going to have some mid-season, real talk here.
Mm-hmm.
So, holistically, third in the division, probably going to make the playoffs. Going to likely draw a Florida opponent in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So, likely, again, might not have home ice advantage.
Who knows? They're a couple games back of Tampa Bay, and they have games in hand. And if they continue the streak that they're on right now, they could catch up. And I'm not ruling it that they're going to finish third. I actually think that the way they're playing, that they could possibly keep racking up points and maybe move up a spot. Even though, what's the difference? I don't think they're probably not catching Florida, so you're probably right. But I could see them possibly moving up at some point, maybe to the second spot, and maybe get that home ice in the first round.
How much weight do you put into home ice?
0.
Interesting. Why?
I don't know. I have no logical reasoning for this, but I always thought it was just so overrated. Even though thinking back to it, those game 7s against the Bruins, they probably could have used home ice, but what the Scotiabank Arena isn't exactly a place where the visiting team comes in and is scared about the possible momentum that the Leafs could gather with how quiet that building is. And I know it's louder in the playoffs, but I think for the Leafs purposes, I guess it's an advantage, but I just never saw it as a big deal in sports, a team getting if you're destined to win and if you're on a roll. You're just going to win no matter what. So I never really put too much stock in home ice advantage. But, maybe it is a factor. I don't know.
How concerned are you about Jack Campbell heading into the second half of the season here? He's seemingly declined as the season's gone on. Someone commented on one of our videos on YouTube, which I thought was actually a pretty valid point about whether playing in the empty building, because Campbell's a guy that seems to feed off that energy and that environment and the soup chants. But, how concerned are you?
I don't think he's going to be as good as he was to start the season. That's gone.
Yeah.
That torrid pace where he was pushing a .940 save percentage, I think is not happening anymore. But I don't. Is he going to be an .850 guy? No. But I think there is going to be a more shared workload between the two, given they're both healthy. I think there's definitely going to be a shared workload. So, I guess I'm a little concerned, but they're just the way they ended. I know they played some crap teams. Man, they're scoring goals right now. Some of the stats that over the last 7 games, Marner has 16 points in the last 7 games. Their power play is on a historical pace right now.
They've been coming from behind. They're scoring their way out of problems.
I'm just not going to put all the emphasis on goaltending, but I do think that if you're expecting Campbell to get back to his form that he had at the start of the season, I don't think that's coming back. But he can't be as shaky as he's been over the past little bit. But we've seen it with Freddie Anderson. We've seen it with plenty other goalies. How many times did Freddie Anderson have a crap month and then follow it up with a month where it was where would the Maple Leafs be without Freddie Anderson? And where would the Maple Leafs be without Jack Campbell at the start of the season?
It's true.
So, it's time for them to bail him out right now,
The defense. Because in order to support Campbell when he isn't playing at that level, they're going to have to tighten up defensively. This is sort of a more holistic conversation in my eyes because, how long, in your lifetime as a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, how long have we been talking about, man, they can score goals, but whoa, are they sketchy in their own end defensively? And
over the better part of a decade.
Yeah, and I think in the past, maybe that's been systems related and coaching related. I don't believe that's the case here. I think the defense, it's a talent issue. That's my personal opinion. So how do we address fixing the defense? But also, what do we say to the people who are like, oh, here they go again, like coming back and winning games like 7-4?
I'm not complaining. Anybody who's complaining about that,
but
like,
I don't think it's necessarily a complaint. I think it's more like, is that sustainable come playoff time?
Look at the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
They're the classic example. Like, how many goals are they scoring a game right now? 9? Like,
Mason Martin
giving up a ton of goals as well. Like, their goaltending's not that great. Name me 3 defensemen on their roster. Like they're doing the exact same thing. I'm not gonna. I hate that. I hate the whole like, oh, well, they're coming back. They're obviously giving up a lot of chances, and it's like, so what?
Yeah.
Would you rather go up 3-1 and blow a lead?
Yeah.
Like, it's not perfect. Like, this team isn't perfect. We know what they are. Like, they just don't have the talent back there. And with Muzzin having such a crap year and being injured, it's really showing that even though he's not that great, injecting him back in the lineup is a big difference for their defense, because having Liljegren on the ice too much is not good. Having Dermott on the ice too much is not good. I think Sandin has had like a pretty positive season so far, but again, like, I just don't think he's physically capable of going up against top guys. I don't care about the way they're winning or whatever. Their defense, we talked about this ad nauseum. Like, they're not good enough. So what is Kyle Dubas going to do about it? Because they're not improving within.
No.
Like, guys can play better. Like, Morgan Riley's he's on pace for a career year in points. Like, and ever since he signed that contract, he's been unbelievable. TJ Brody, been very solid. I think Sandin, at the start of the season, I was a big skeptic, and I think he's had a great year. And then, like, at least Liljegren stayed in the lineup. At least it hasn't been a disaster, but, like, all those guys can play a little bit better, but we know it isn't good enough. And also the forwards are included in that as well. Like, the forwards have to play better in their own end as well. Because if you're a D in your own end and you're getting forechecked and you need to throw the puck away quick and there's no outlet there, then, like, the D looks like crap, but really it's the forward who's not in position. So it's like an overall team, everybody, forward defense needs to be better in their own end, and Kyle Dubas has to just create magic with somehow getting somebody, because I'm pretty sure they have no picks between like 3 and 6 rounds.
Somebody's going to have to go out the door to bring in. Like, trading futures, while you still can do that to an extent, someone is going to have to go out the door to bring in the defenseman that you're looking for. Who that is, especially when we talk about, like, I think I said this last week and I'll say it again. I don't envy the guy at all. Like, he's in a tough spot. I think when you look at the forwards, the Leafs roll 4 lines just as good as any team in the league. Defensively, that is not the case.
Yeah.
So, what do you do? Who do you trade? What package do you put together? Who, like, to bring in? Because you can't just bring in, like, ideally you'd like to get a top 4 guy.
Yeah, like the names.
But
the names that are thrown out that are unrealistic are like they throw in like Josh Manson. It's like,
but I can't.
What are you gonna trade for him?
I also laugh at myself when I say, like, oh, they're looking for a top 4 guy. Every team in this league is looking for another top 4 defenseman.
I know. They're going to have to go and find somebody. The most realistic option is they go and try and find someone to replace either Liljegren or Dermott when they're not playing well.
Yes.
Like, that's really all they can do.
Yes.
Like, the only guy who can go out the door, who makes a difference in, like, your salary cap situation, because they're not getting rid of anybody who's worth anything.
No.
Like, they're like, just kiss that goodbye. So, like, Alex Kerfoot's the only name I see that's like, he makes $3.5 million. He can kill penalties, having a good year.
Another team would be interested if you put him on the table.
Great depth player, but it's like, you're not going and getting Josh Manson or everyone Jacob. They're not getting Jacob Chikrin. Like, it's not happening.
It's like the Larry David meme where he's like, it's like where he doesn't know which way to look. It's like, what? Kerfoot. Right? Oh, we could use Kerfoot as a trade chip, but it's like, if you're going to go on a deep playoff run, you need a guy like Alex Kerfoot.
And I like Alex Kerfoot, but, like, that's not a big enough piece for another team to give up a good defenseman.
No.
Like, unless you're picking off the Arizona Coyotes, which people are looking at because of Jacob Chikrin. But still, they're not going to give up their top defensive prospect for Alex Kerfoot. And, can they give away another first rounder? I don't know. Because right now, the present is everything for this hockey team. It's the future. Screw the future. Yeah. Screw it. There's...
Well, but again, this is what brings, you got to know that, I wonder if Kyle, I'd love to just be a fly on the wall during a conversation with Kyle and Shanny, where they're just talking about, because you're right. If you're Kyle Dubas and you know for certain your job is on the line, screw the future. Push your chips all in, do whatever you can to win a round. But if you're him and you know, I'm pretty safe here, I'm going to get an opportunity to try and fix this, do you really want to hamstring yourself to the point? Because there's no... Okay, let's say they win a round. We're all talking... The bar is so low here that when we talk playoff success, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a single first-round victory. We're not talking about second or third or cup final or anything like that. So, who's to say they pull out a miraculous 7-game series win over the Florida Panthers and then go into the second round and get the doors blown off by whoever's sitting there waiting for them?
I don't think... Okay, keep going. Finish your point.
But it's so if you're him, this is the game you're playing. Mm-hmm. How much of the future do you want to mortgage? When the reality of the situation is, I keep coming back to this, your big boys are going to have to get it done come playoff time. And if they don't get it done come playoff time, it's do you want to part ways with more future capital to try and support? You can trade the draft capital, the Nick Robertsons, all you want. If Austin Matthews scores 1 goal again in the first round, you're not winning the series. Yeah, so, this is the dance you have to kind of play. What do you do?
Well, this team's frustrating. First of all, they're never going to get the doors blown off them in the playoffs. They never have.
Yes.
They always go down to the last game, in the last moment. They're not a team that's going to go win and lose 4 straight games. And it's such a tough situation because, dude, they're a good hockey team.
They are.
I actually was a big boy and looked at some stats. This is the best 42-game start they've had in this whole era.
I think in this, just quickly, from our conversation last week when I said that because of what you just said, I don't believe Kyle Dubas deserves to lose his job.
I don't think so either. And then, that first 7-game start they had this season, disastrous. Yeah. Ever since then, they're 27-6-2, picking up 80% of all the points they can. And they're top 5 in special teams, and they're top 10 in goals for and goals against per game. They're on pace to have the best season of their whole franchise. Yep. William Nylander's on pace to have a career year. Morgan Riley, John Tavares kind of in the same thing. Austin Matthews on pace for goals, points. Michael Bunting,
Alex Kerfoot,
Camp,
Kasha,
and Bunting, all under $5 million, have provided you 70 points so far. Dude, they're a good hockey team. After that 7-game start, say they just had a decent start, they're probably in first place in that division.
True, but I think that the concerning thing is a lot of the stats that you just rattled off, with the exception of Morgan Riley, are forwards. And when you look at the defense, you've got Riley, Brody, Muzzin, and then Sandin. But to your point, I think Sandin is still... It takes a defenseman a long time to develop in this league.
He's not physically capable of going up against, Brad Marchand for a whole game.
Talk to us in a year or two about Rasmus Sandin. But after that, it's it kind of falls off. And I'm not saying, Timothy Liljegren is not a bad hockey player. He's just not a top... Right now in his life and career, he is not a top 4 NHL defenseman who can play and the type of role that they need him to play.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
They're right on the edge, man.
So is the formula of this team winning... Your forwards need to continue to produce at the pace they've produced for this season. I don't think you need... Jack Campbell playing the way he did in the first month of the season wasn't realistic.
No,
wasn't real.
That was not real.
No.
Those numbers were astronomical. That was not Jack Campbell.
So that, and then they kind of need to hold on for dear life defensively.
Yeah.
And then get timely saves when needed.
I think they're like set up for the rest of this regular season.
Yeah.
Like you can try all the line combinations. By the way, we talked about the line combinations, and I said things don't last. Next game, gone.
Yeah.
Nylander back with Tavares. Like, it's stupid, but it's like they're set up. Their power play's good. Like the two assistant coaches that came in and wanted to fix everything, they did.
Yeah.
They fixed it, and they're better at letting goal. Like they've had a better defensive year in terms of letting goals in their own net. Like they're still scoring at a good pace. Like I think they're like set up, like almost like they're a regular season hockey team. Like they're going to.
I think if you're looking at jaded Leaf fans,
there is a point. No, for sure.
That's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Is this more of what we've seen? A team that can play really well in the regular season, but when the pressure gets turned up in the playoffs, can they do it? And that's why at the end of the day, it's
so
like
frustrating because they've been so close.
Yeah.
It's not like they've went in and lost 4 straight.
But
every year it's game 7. They just can't do it.
But exactly, if you look at the there's a common thread and through line though. If you look at the last game 7 against Boston, no show. Like they had 2 consecutive game 7s against Boston. The first one they had a lead going into the third period, blew it and lost. The second one, they did the thing that they've done against Boston, Columbus, and Montreal, where the game's on the line and they just skate around.
I don't pretend.
The whole team looks terrified.
I pretend that Columbus series never happened.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't even count.
So it's just like, but that can't happen this year, right?
And then it sucks too, is if you look back at like the year that they lost to Columbus, like I think that was the year they were in the most disarray at every single year with the whole Babcock thing, and Keith didn't really get his time, and then the bubble, but like you look at, you had Columbus and you had Montreal 2 years in a row. You had Washington, Boston. Those are tough teams to beat. You know, like Boston Bruins are as battle tested as you can get.
Yep.
But you had 2 prime opportunities against 2 mediocre hockey teams.
Blew it.
And you just couldn't score.
Yeah.
Your top guys couldn't get it done. And couldn't score.
Again, I sound like a broken record, but this is the dance I keep doing in my head, which is like, I'm someone who is on the socials with everybody else going, what's Kyle Dubas going to do at the deadline? Is he going to bring in a defenseman? Their defenseman is not, their defense core is not good enough. But guess what? If we mortgage the future and we bring in another defenseman and Austin Matthews only scores 1 goal in 7 games, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Your big boys are going to be the ones that take you to the promised land. Yeah. Your big boys scoring goals when they need to score goals, and Jack Campbell or Peter Mrazek or whoever not letting in a back-breaking goal, which is what Freddie Anderson did in his entire tenure here.
And honestly, I think Jack Campbell's had a incredible Leaf career, but Game 7, that goal, Brendan Gallagher to open the scoring, that can't go in.
No, so it's just like,
I know. But they do, like, I get what you're saying, but I think, like for me, like, what's your expectation? Like, to me, you got to win a round.
Yes.
Like, this team isn't winning the Stanley Cup. No. Like, it's not happening. It's not. Like,
unless they get in, the only way I see that happening is if they get it. Here's my only caveat to that. I think the East is pretty wide open in the NHL, and I think if you look at the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion, the Tampa Bay Lightning, yes. No, but listen. Yes, they have arguably the best defenseman in the league.
The best goalie in the league.
So, who won the Conn Smythe last year? Number 88 between the pipes.
Hasn't missed a minute of playoff action in 2 seasons. He's like,
the Leafs are going to need, if the Leafs, yes. Anything short of 1 series win is completely unacceptable. And even though I've changed my tune on Kyle Dubas, it's one thing that will make me change my tune back is if we lose the first round again and we come out after the season's over and talk about how, this is the group we're going to go down. No. So,
it's tough,
anything short of a first round series win is completely unacceptable. But after that, what you hope is you can get momentum and the superstars, Matthews, Marner, whoever, can feel like it's off their shoulders. And then you need Jack Campbell or Peter Mrazek to play out of their mind and make big saves and be a difference maker. Because the thing that killed Freddie Anderson in this town is when we got to, and it wasn't There were moments in those Boston series, if you remember, where like those 2 years in a row that they played the Boston Bruins, that series isn't getting to 7 without Freddie Anderson. But when the light was shining brightest in the 7th game of the series, he couldn't make the big saves, and it was back-breaking goals.
Yeah, and
that can't happen.
And they need everybody to play better defensively in those games as well, because they give up back-breaking opportunities, and their goalie has to make those saves, and when he doesn't, like, you're screwed. But they do need, going back to the whole defenseman thing, like, if you're going to play these tough teams in a 7-game series, you need more physicality back there. Like, you need bigger guys. You need guys who can handle the workload. Like, Rasmus Sandin is going to get eaten alive in a 7-game series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, he might have a couple of good games, but man, when you're going up against those lines every single night, like,
well, and also for forwards too, it's like you have to understand that like you're going to have to make some offense happen here. Like, why was everyone so upset?
Mitch Marner's
why was everyone so
offense?
upset?
Yeah, like
at him last year against
and they all need to click.
Yes.
Like, they all need to click. I know they missed John last year, like that unfortunate incidents, but like, all of them need to contribute. It's not just one guy. Like, all of them do.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. And they need to take turns every night, because they're not going to come out and dominate every single night. But when Marner's off, Nylander has to step up. And when Matthews is off, Tavares needs to step up. Like, it's got to be a whole collective effort. Man, this team is such a trip. Like, it's
I know.
They're such a good team. Yeah. Like, on paper, they're an amazing team. All their statistics, everything they're doing this season, it's like, they're on pace to have the greatest season in the history of the franchise. And guys are going to have career years. And they have a goalie who was playing out of his mind, who just, like, you got lucky with. Like, he could have sucked from the start. But then it's like, you get to the end, and it's not good enough.
They've also put themselves in a position where...
And their division that they play in sucks, too.
I know.
Like, it's a tough division, man.
It's like... They put themselves in a position, too, where, like, you can finish with the greatest regular season in team history, but if
it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And it also doesn't... You've also put yourself in a position where, let's say... Because if the playoffs started tomorrow, they're going to Tampa.
No, thank you.
So...
you got to find a way to avoid that.
But if the playoffs started tomorrow, they're going to Tampa. So... They've also put themselves in a position where...
Dude, that's the last thing I want.
I know.
They're done.
I know.
They're out in the first round if they go to Tampa Bay. I promise.
I know. It's terrifying.
I had an argument with my buddy about this, and he was saying, I was debating that I don't want to play Tampa, and he was debating that he wouldn't want to play Florida. And I'm like, okay, I don't think Florida's actually that great. They're a good hockey team, but if you just put it in, like, worst-case scenarios, it's like the Leafs have a 1% chance of beating the Florida Panthers, even though I think they actually could beat them in a 7-game series. But say it was just 1% chance. They go to Tampa Bay, it's 0, man. They're not winning that series. Like, against that team that's that battle-tested, that has that much talent, that has the most playoff-proven goalie in the whole league.
Yeah. It's the goalie.
It's a disaster. It's a disaster.
I'm terrified. I have nightmares about Vasilevsky.
Which why it just drives me crazy that they just, like, they lost to Columbus?
Yeah.
Columbus.
The Montreal Canadiens, who are...
The Montreal Canadiens were the worst hockey team I've ever seen in my entire life.
I know.
It's a series of unfortunate events for this franchise.
Before we get out of here, our version of mid-season grades and mid-season report cards is I want to hear who's the biggest bum and who's the biggest beauty of the first half of the season so far.
The biggest bum first half is Peter Mrazek.
Really?
Wasn't healthy. Wasn't good, like, still really hasn't shown anything. Like, yeah, he beat the Islanders. Like, cool.
I will say there's been certain circumstances that has been out of his control.
I know,
in
terms of I'm not even going after, like, him personally. It's just, like, overall expectation for. I mean, I could have picked the lowest hanging fruit, but I wasn't going to. But
it's the lowest hanging fruit,
Nick Ritchie. But
see, I'm not going to choose. Yeah, it is the lowest hanging fruit, but I'm not going to choose.
I think. I had expectations for Peter Mrazek to come in here, and whether he was injured or not, whether he was played awful and he wasn't injured, just when you pay that guy that money to come in and kind of be a 1A, 1B, when you've pretty much gotten absolutely nothing out of him, and he's not even, like, of any value right now, like, you basically have to start over with him. I think he's been the biggest bum in terms of overall expectation.
My biggest bum of the first half of the season is Justin Hull. Here's a guy who fit into the role of number 4 defenseman last year, and we thought we had that solved.
Yeah.
Here's a guy who, for moments last year, was shutting down Connor McDavid and was going into the season. I was like, well, they've got a top 4. They've got Muzzin and Hull.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't been good at all. And I think his play, I don't think Jake Muzzin's been great either, but I think Muzzin's play has been affected by how bad Justin Hull has been. So
both been bad, man.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Justin Hull. I think, listen, at the end of the day, maybe our expectations for him were too high, but this isn't good enough.
He's got to play a bigger role
Yes.
because he's physically capable of playing that bigger
Yes.
role. And dude, like they're gonna need him.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
they're gonna need him to play better. Like if you just had a bad first half, fine, you gotta snap out of it. Like even Jake Muzzin too. Like you can just see how important he is in this lineup when he's gone, and when he comes back, he better play like he's capable of.
Biggest beauty of the first half of the season. Who's going to take the obvious answer?
You go first.
Michael Bunting is the obvious answer to this question.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my Chris Collinsworth. Here's a guy who, like, you and I sat here and we poked fun at everybody who was calling this guy the savior. And you and I sat here and not once did you and I say they needed to pay Zach Hyman that money.
I mean, there was a time where like we kind of were in that camp, but like by the end of it, we were no.
I think we were always of the mindset of you cannot pay Zach Hyman the amount of money.
Yeah.
But we always thought this is going to be a massive loss for them.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Bunting has made everyone in this fan base forget about Zach Hyman. You got him. Honorable mention to Kyle Dubas, who's got this guy for 2 years.
Yeah, for nothing.
For nothing.
Yeah.
So
he'll be gone after next year or so.
So like hat tip to him.
Yeah.
He comes in, he's playing alongside him and Austin Matthews are glued at the hip.
Yeah.
He's
I don't know if you checked the score either, but he has 29 points.
So,
Zach Hyman has 25.
So there you go, man. Like I just think Michael Bunting is the clear choice. I love his brand of hockey.
Yeah.
Like
leads the league in drawing penalties.
Yes, like just a fantastic addition.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them, with the exception of Nick Ritchie, have been fantastic additions. But Michael Bunting, to me, is the beauty of the first half.
I agree. That's pretty undisputed. I think if Campbell didn't go on that stretch, he would have been also an obvious choice. Like I still want to pick him because, man, like you couldn't expect him to hold them in.
Dude, there's a bunch of guys you could pick. There's a bunch of guys.
I know. You could pick 34.
You could pick Matthews.
He's unbelievable.
You could pick Matthews.
We could pick Nylander. Nylander's
yep.
He's on pace for his best year.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of guys to pick. I'm gonna go with. I can't go with a specific player. I just can't pick one. So I'm just gonna go with the whole special teams of this hockey team. Like that was a disaster.
Yes.
Like at the end of last season. And then you bring in these random assistant coaches, and everyone likes to poke fun at the assistant coaches when they're not doing their job or when the power play or penalty kill sucks. But I just think all the guys, especially the penalty kill, like Camp, Kerfoot, Marner, Mikheyev, all the defensemen.
Dean Chanath.
Like, man, they've been really good.
Dean Chanath is showing them how to set up a proper power play, and then he's going to help them all do their income tax. A little later on.
I also got to put an honorable mention for Morgan Riley, too. He's had a very good year. Almost a very underrated year. He's been really good, man.
I've got an honorable mention for you. One of the things that I set out to when we started this podcast, and you set out to when we started this podcast, is if we give a hot take and then down the road it's not a great take, or it seems to even out in the end, I'll come out and I'll admit, like, I'm wrong. This is different. See what I did last week with Kyle Dubas. I was ready to fire Kyle Dubas into the sun at the end of Game 7 last year, and now I'm like, no.
It's over.
Yeah, and
it's
now,
over.
Yeah, and now I'm like, no, keep him. I want to give an honorable mention to Alex Kerfoot.
Yeah.
I have ranted and raved over that Nazem Kadri trade, and I have called that the worst trade in franchise history.
Which, you see how well Kadri's playing? Like, I think it's still a pretty bad trade.
However, Alex Kerfoot has turned himself into a nice role player on this team who Keefe can insert anywhere up and down the lineup, and he plays well and fits right in. And I want to tip my cap to the guy because I've been really hard on him since he got here.
Yeah.
And I thought he had a really good first half of the season. And if they're going to do something in the playoffs, the superstars are going to need a support group around them. And I see Alex Kerfoot as very much a part of that support group.
Yeah. It's hard to find guys who've sucked.
Yeah.
Like Nick Ritchie, that didn't work out.
No.
Like Peter Mrazek so far hasn't really worked out for injuries.
But you hope he can get into a rhythm.
Yeah, like he can. Like Nick Ritchie's not coming back. No, like he's done.
Yeah.
So I mean, hopefully Mrazek can turn it around. But like it's really hard to sit and pick out dudes who've sucked.
Yeah.
Like they've been good since like after that 7-game stretch. They've been really good. Everybody's been really good. Everyone's played a role. Everyone's moved up and down the lineup. They have a checking line with David Camp, who looks like he's 10 years old. They have Jason Spezza, who has he's gonna score 20 goals this year, and like the second line, like Tavares, like makes me kind of angry sometimes. But again, point a game hockey player, like Nylander, career year, Matthews, career year, Bunting, Marner's. Like when Marner's on, there's nobody who puts his team more over the top than him. You know, like it's really hard to sit and look at dudes like. And I don't want to get on Liljegren. I don't want to get on Sandin. Dermott's had a very challenging year, but it's really hard to sit and call people bums on this hockey team. Like they've been really good, man.
All right, I think that's going to do it for us this week. We're ready to embark on the second half of the Maple Leafs season.
It feels like I was even started.
I know, as we head towards the first round of the postseason.
Strap in.
Thanks, everyone, for checking us out this week. If you like what you see, hit that like and subscribe button below. Also, if you're listening to the audio form of this podcast, leave a 5-star review. Or just hit the 5-star. You don't even need to write a review. Just hit that 5-star button. Really helps us out. We really appreciate it. Also, if you want to interact with us further, head to our Instagram at Talkin' Buds Podcast. Spread the word. Tell your friends. We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week.